Friend got me an Eileen Myles t-shirt. This is a piece about Eileen Myles. She's a poet and a writer. I had to write a piece about her for this website called Emily Books, and this is that. But I also added shit to it because I'm weird and obsessive at the last minute. My girlfriend got me an Eileen Myles t-shirt at the Sister Spit event in Oakland. It's black with big purple letters reading, "You've got the style, Eileen Myles." I wore it for the first time in Palm Springs to a Dinah Shore white party, which is a party where everyone wears white. And Dinah Shore is this gross annual lesbian weekend for girls who want to finger fuck in swimming pools, oil wrestle in wet t-shirts, drink their faces off, and scream at each other in public. All the lesbian websites send reps to Dinah Shore, so there we were, like Revenge of the Nerds. It was our second time. The first time had been terrible or awesome. Linnea twisted her ankle. Tess and Brooke got into a bar fight about who deserved a larger share of our very broke company. Kip and I ate banana bread laced with marijuana and bombed an interview with a fledgling web TV enterprise, and then we got lost in the desert. And Taylor got completely dressed for a party and then emptied a glass of water over her own head. It was wonderful. We didn't fit in there or talk to anyone besides each other. We threw private parties in crowded rooms. We were apart, and maybe the more apart we felt, the more we knew that we needed to find a way to make being apart our own crowded room. So it was terrible, is what I'm telling you, but we returned. That was our style. So I was there in my black pants and my black Eileen Myles t-shirt at the white party, and then suddenly everything turned black, and then I wasn't anywhere anymore. I remember this. I remember Julie's face, I remember her white hat, and then I remember everything being black again. Then I could see again for a minute. I could see the bar lights glowing pink and orange. Then everything black again. But I'm an animal, you know, so I listen to my instincts. I have to get up. I have to run. Everyone is looking at me. Then I was being carried, and I could hear things like Linnea and Rachel saying I'd only had one drink, and that my face was blue, and that they needed to call 911, but that I had no health insurance. I couldn't speak. I was on a bed now in somebody's hotel room. Then another big blank space, and then later there were EMTs, and they were attaching things to me, and they were announcing my apparently alarming blood pressure, and I apparently garbled, "It's over," to Sarah. "It's all over, Sarah. This is it." She told me I'd said it a few times. "This is it. It's all over. It's all over. This is it. This is the end." I think she thought that I meant my life. But although death felt remarkably possible at that moment, I didn't think my life is over. I meant the way I've been living. My poem was over, and hell had bottomed out. I thought being an artist meant you had to do anything for the experience, Eileen Myles writes in Furnow. That is exactly what I'd done. In your 20s, you just kind of chug along, Eileen Myles says, dredging up feelings as you go. You consider your behavior just art, just grist for the mill. So when I said it's over, I was talking about the grist. Goodbye, mill. I was being punished, I thought, in my oxygen mask, for ignoring the people who told me that the way to live was not the way I was living, for telling me it was not okay to talk back to the men who yelled at me in the street, for going everywhere alone and late at night, for insisting that I didn't need anybody or anything, let alone a reliable or profitable thing to live, for fucking up over and over and over and over, when maybe I could have done something else, something besides fucking up, for not dealing, for not talking about what happened to me, for not healing, for blaming myself when I was hated, when I was hit, when I was fucked, for ignoring the voices in my head that told me I was doing it wrong, and I would be punished somehow if I took that illegal job or stuck with her through the madness, gave him another chance, moved in with her, spent all of his money on everyone but me, took those 5 drugs at once, and then again, for ignoring my friends who worried about mixing ibuprofen and alcohol as I downed pills like a punch to the throat. But I'm in control of all of this chaos, I'd insist. Even the hard parts. I'd lived through it, hadn't I? But then I was lying in a hospital bed, like an idiot, with "You've got the style Eileen Myles" on my chest. It was embarrassing. Earlier, 24, I had decided it would be okay to kill myself, Eileen Myles writes. At 27, I decided it was okay to live. Yes, me too, but it was 28, not 27. Not like I chose drama or instability, it just sort of scared me. Worst case scenario, it'd be grist for the mill. It's my water break. But if I indeed have the style like Eileen Myles, then those bad decisions weren't the self-indulgent decisions of a delusional dreamer or an elaborate display of self-sabotage. Those decisions weren't the decisions of an idiot. Those were the decisions of a writer. This has been my work, all of it, this entire life. In a way, I've always known this to be true, but I never heard a woman say it with such unapologetic swagger until I discovered Eileen Myles. In Myles' 2000 book, Cool for You, the narrator asks, why can't I be famous right now? Why can't I just act that way? Why can't I just record everything like my life counts? In Inferno, that's what Eileen Myles does. When Inferno starts, Eileen Myles is 18, I think, near Boston, in English class with a teacher who has a beautiful ass and assigns her students to write their own Inferno after Dante. The teacher likes Eileen's submission so much that she reads it out loud to the class. Eileen smiles all the way home, having found her skill. I could know myself, that's all. Some lazy thing I could always do because I was dumb and not normal but special, something crazy. Maybe that could be my job, I could know myself. She has this idea that knowing herself can be a job, that being a poet is a job. Nobody wants to pay you for that at first. So you hustle to make money, to buy yourself the time to write. But how I feel reading Eileen Myles is that the hustle doesn't just enable the writing, the hustle is part of the writing, the humility, that experience. My friends were too proud to accept expensive gifts from our wealthy friend. I wasn't. I was a writer. Everything is a grant. Besides, I loved her. The poet's job involves writing, but also it involves serving drinks and washing floors. For Eileen, she picked apples, sold slugs, filled out grant applications, befriended rich people. In New York, I would do any job besides a full-time office job. Think of your last resort job. I did that job. Offices just seemed pointless. At least waiting tables or giving hand jobs, something interesting might happen. I mean, what the fuck was I even doing at Dinah Shore Weekend? It was grotesque, I guess, so we could afford to come home and write about poetry. Everybody took turns coming into my cell in the hospital. Not a cell, really, an area. Like a bed, and there was a curtain. Doctors came in, and there were other doctors, and they tested all my liquids. Call Marnie, I kept saying, would somebody please call Marnie? Haviland had to hold a bedpan for me. We're about to get really close, she said. Well, it's a good thing we've already had sex, I said. Linnea sat next to me and she held my hand, our tiny assemblage of bones. Then my ex-girlfriend Alex sighed as she sat down and I joked, aren't you glad I'm not your problem anymore? Was I joking though? Here's the problem for women. Making poetry a job? There's the money thing, because everyone has an opinion about your budget and they think you're audacious for wanting to get paid to write. Generally speaking, also, most people think you're sort of silly, especially if you're a girl writing about yourself. Who wants to listen to a woman talk about herself? Why doesn't she get a job at a bank? Eileen Myles wrote a thing called Being Female, where she says, is writing a job, writing books, writing poems? If it is, then the message to women is to go elsewhere. In Inferno, Eileen Myles sees that message, but she goes there anyway. Eileen Myles, like some other women I know who grow up not understanding why everyone treated them like girls, has that thing men have, where they pop out of the womb already feeling important and necessary. All these little boys with mouths wide open telling stories we've heard 100 times before. I'm not one of those women. I knew I was a girl, and so I knew why I wasn't being treated like, or I knew I was being treated like one. I was thinking today that I've spent my whole life trying to be a man, says Eileen Myles. I'm sure you don't understand what I mean by that. Eileen Myles has that butch thing where she can play boys' games and have a boy attitude, but her heart is like so female. It's killer. I mean, she'll just slay you. I want to be more like Eileen Myles. I mean, she devotes an entire chapter to cunnilingus eventually. Her whole book is like yearning, 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 sincerity, and city dirty fists. An odyssey that starts in Boston and derails to a large estate in Pennsylvania and hangs out on the places you wish you'd been, with all the people you wish you'd known in New York City. Patti Smith, apartment Soho full of sluts, and Debbie Harry, St. Mark's Poetry Project, Kathy Acker, Nan Golden. She went to New York to be a writer. So did I, but I thought admitting that would sound egotistical, like I wanted to be extraordinary. There's a lot I love about Inferno, as a person, as a lesbian, as a woman, as a former New Yorker. But the main thing I took away from Inferno, which I read for the first time 2 years ago, was that it's okay to feel this way. It's content to be living and writing in that spot between sex and sadness. Being a writer, being full of it, being female, having style like Eileen Myles. How do I take myself seriously enough to say, I'm a writer, everything is a grant, without hearing everyone laugh at me? The entitled, lazy, stupid brat. How do I read my poem to the room without feeling like I should apologize afterwards? As a woman, as a queer, as a writer, how do I stop worrying about what other people think and publish words like what Eileen Myles publishes? No one asked me to have a life like this, to be a poet. It was my idea. Having her style is being hardened and sincere all at once. Bathing in motor oil and rinsing off in a glass shower. It's riding Don Quixote's donkey. Yee-haw. Several hours later, I am still lying there in my Eileen Myles t-shirt in the Palm Springs emergency room. Haviland has stuck around, everyone else is at the concert. I have been resuscitated. I owe them something like $7,000, which seems excessive. And that's before the ambulance bill. The tests were inconclusive. They don't know what happened to me. Maybe it was dehydration. They give me a pamphlet about fainting spells and another about the dangers of marijuana. Did I want a brain scan? I couldn't afford it. Was I employed? I was not. They'd send me some papers so I could ask the government to foot the bill. Sure. I'm tangled up in all my imagined probable causes, each one eternally possible and impossible. What was I being punished for? I'll never know. So we went back to the hotel room, and it was quiet. And I curled up in bed next to Linnea, in my Eileen Myles t-shirt and my underpants. Everyone was sleeping, and I felt like a deer. It would be embarrassing behavior if the person was real, writes Eileen Myles. But he wasn't. He was a writer. Thanks.